sergeant who was off that day reached out, texted one of the guys in the office and said there was a shooting at the high school, and nobody believed it. Like, we believed it, but we're like, man, it's just somebody nearby at a house, fired off a rifle or something, and the police are gonna go do their job. And then a couple minutes go by, and the captain comes in and he said there's been a shooting at the high school, and he said all hands on deck.
Okay. What did you take that to mean?
There's a shooting, like it was.
All hands on deck. You're not normally somebody who responds to active shooter situations, right?
No, it's for the nerds. No. When for the captain to come to the computer crimes office, that was all due respect to the guys in there and the gals in there. That's not their job to deal with that. The fact that he came in there it was a really big deal.
Okay. And you mentioned you were driving pretty fast. Tell me about that.
I remember getting out to my car. At the time I had a white minivan that had lights and siren in it. No one ever took it seriously when you turned the lights and siren on. But I remember pulling out of the parking lot, and I looked to my left, and there's, it didn't seem real. It didn't seem like this. Like I'm thinking in my head like this is just blown out of proportion because I didn't have my radio on in the car. I couldn't hear the radio traffic at the time, and I looked to my left, and there's two patrol cars, not even from our agency, not even from the sheriff's office, come around the far corner on this complex by the medical examiner's office and the animal control. And they turned that corner on two wheels on each side, on the back, coming around that corner, their lights were shining, they were going fast. And I'm like, holy cow, this is real. So then I turned my lights on because I just thought we'd get there and do what computer crimes does, we would do our thing. And I turned my lights on and siren, and I started going north towards Walton. Telegraph runs up to Walton, and it cuts over to US 24. Telegraph cuts up to Walton, and it goes over to M24. And I had no idea where the heck I was going. I've been to Oxford for a half a second driving through. And I thought, well, I remember thinking when I get there, I'll just follow the crowd because it's going to be big. And going north on 24, and I see one of our SWAT vehicles going across that bridge from 75 down to 24, and the light was red for me, and I thought, well, I'm gonna have to slow down. Like, there's cars coming down the ramp. And I remember getting closer and closer, thinking, how come nobody's going? Like, my light's red. This cross traffic should be going. Like, because as a police officer, obviously, when you run a red light, it's extremely dangerous. You don't do it haphazardly. And I'm approaching this light, thinking I'm gonna have to slow down. And as I get to the light, I look over and there's a patrol car just sitting. I don't know what agency they work for. And so I go through that intersection, and then I see them join up behind me, and then I see two other patrol cars from another agency coming up behind me. I remember, I don't know if it was Brown Road or what, the next major crossroad up the hill there. I remember that light was red and there were cars stopped in both lanes, and I thought to myself, I'm gonna have to go onto the shoulder. And so I'm looking at the shoulder thinking, it's part dirt. It's a small shoulder of asphalt and dirt, and my small tires on that minivan, it's not gonna handle well, but we're not gonna stop going, right? So I remember feeling the steering wheel shaking from the gravel, and I get around and keep driving north. Crowd still following me. I look up in the mirror every once in a while, and there had to been, I couldn't count them. They were so far deep behind me, and the ambulances and the SWAT vehicle. And we get up into town, up into Oxford, I think we were. And as I'm approaching the light, it just changes red. So obviously cross traffic doesn't know what's going on there. You might just have somebody that just goes straight, and again, it's dangerous. It really is. And so with the lead car, I've always been told the lead car in a situation like that, you always hold that intersection for everybody else behind you because they're coming. And so as I inch into the intersection, I stopped dead in the intersection with the lights and siren going. And I counted at least 16 vehicles just go screaming past me. And we get We start getting into town and northbound traffic's blocked. It's dead stopped. I remember going against oncoming traffic, and now you see cars coming at you, you know, and you're the whole way there. All I could hear on the radio was staging area on Ray Road, Meyer. That's what I kept on hearing. There was so much radio traffic. I heard bits and pieces of other things, but that like really stuck in my head. And so we're just driving north, and finally, I just see a Meyer, and I'm like, okay, well, we got to be far enough north. This is where I got to go. And so I pull up onto Ray Road, and I meet up with other deputies in the area.
If you could describe to us what you saw when you arrived at that Meyer.
That was tough. That was really tough. I got a daughter who, she's 17, 18 years old, and, you know, 17-year-olds, you know, they wear those tight leggings and all that stuff and small shirts or whatever. I remember standing there on Ray Road, and I see these kids. One kid didn't even have a shoe on. He only had one shoe on. Walking through the snowbank, going down to the Meyer. And I see these girls dressed like my daughter. And it was cold that day. I had 2 coats on, and I was shaking. I was shivering. It was so cold. I remember offering one of our lieutenants at the time. He didn't have a coat. I offered one of my coats because I was so cold, and he didn't take it. But you just saw these kids just coming down from where the school was. Like, it's hard to describe. They look like zombies. Like they had no facial expression, nothing.
So there were kids there. Were their parents at the Meyer too?
Down by the garden center. But the crowd was heading that way, and it was chaos. It really was. I really didn't know what to do once I got there. I didn't know where the school was, even though it was just up the street. So everybody was walking to the garden center, so I started going that way. And at first, we were told to start getting people to sign their name into notebooks. We were just grabbing them off the shelves in the Meyer and boxes of pens and stuff, and just write their names in the notebooks for whatever. I don't know why they needed that. So I'm trying to walk around and get this information from people. And then they start yelling. Someone starts yelling, you know, get everybody inside, get everybody inside. So I go back outside to try to usher people in. And I remember just seeing like kids just standing there, and you put your arm on them. You don't want to, you know, they just been through this, whatever happened up there. And I don't want to force them. I'm not going to grab them. I'm not going to make them do anything they don't want to do. So I sort of, like, if they didn't move, I just left them. You know, like they were okay. They weren't in harm's way. And I remember seeing parents just standing there, and because these school buses started arriving. And I remember thinking in my head, like, God, that is just crazy. Why the heck are there school buses? I didn't know anything about the plan if something like this happened at the school. And I just see the parents, like, you see them just almost praying in their head that their kid came off the bus.
After you helped with the names and the notebooks, did you go to the school?
Yes, I did.
And were you directed to go to school, or did you just know that's where you were needed?
No, one of the other detectives, Jeff Enger, he responded to the school, and he called me on my phone and said they were trying to get the video from the surveillance cameras in the school. And at the time, I was a little more versed in that side of the job. And so he just wanted a little help with that.
Okay. So tell me about, you arrived at the school. Where did you initially go?
I went to what would be the north side of the school. There's a big circle drive there, and it's the side that like the main office is on of the school. And again, there were patrol cars everywhere. There were everybody everywhere. I remember driving up over the sidewalk, thinking, I remember like the stuff I remembered, like the sidewalk being so high, I thought it was gonna rip the muffler off my car. I don't know why I thought about that. And I go up over the sidewalk, and I just stopped my car because that's what seemed like everybody was doing. And I walk in the door, and one of our sergeants is standing there, providing security just for that door so people aren't coming in, they shouldn't be coming in or whatever. And I asked him where the security office was, because that's where Detective Enger told me he was, and pointed me to the office, and people eventually pointed me back to the security office.
Okay. And who did you encounter when you went there?
As I walked in, I remember seeing the security officer, Jim Rourke, was in there. Deputy Jason Lewert was there. I didn't know him at the time. ATF agent Brett Brandon was in the room.
Right here behind
Yep. And Lieutenant Marsban was in the room.
And you said at that point you were called over to help with the security footage.
That's correct.
Okay, so tell me what your role was at that point.
Well, obviously, the bosses are going to want to know what happened, where it started, all that information, and I wasn't given any direction. We weren't given direction, but we just had to figure out when it started, where it started, how it started, as much as we can, because they're going to want to know that information. And so we just started reviewing video footage.
At that point in time, was the high school still being cleared?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And when I say being cleared, we haven't had another officer testify yet. What does that mean?
To clear something, you're going to look for more bad guys. You're going to look for maybe bombs that might have been placed, someone hiding in a room because they know the police are there, so they're checking every room, every closet, everything in a high school, going door by door, checking it all.
So tell me how it is that you went about your job that you were called there to do that day.
Jim Rourke, like I said, he was the head of security, and they had a system where you didn't actually interact with the DVR system itself. You interacted through a portal, a web page, to access the server where the video was stored at. And thank goodness he was very well versed in that. So I immediately, I told him, I said, well, you got to help me figure this out because I don't know what's going on here. So Jim and I sat there, went to the hallway that it started, and tried to determine at what time the shooter went in there.
So how many cameras approximately did Oxford High School have equipped for surveillance footage?
Well, they released 100 cameras.
Okay. And it was your responsibility to review that footage?
Yes, it was.
Judge, this might be time for a natural break.
Oh, all right. Well, the jury's lunch is here, so that is probably where. I'm not sure if I call you sergeant, detective, lieutenant, Mr. Hey you, none of